Alright, we are still doing sum and product over here. It says fully factorize by first removing a common factor. How nice of them. They told us the first step first, okay? So you need to remove a common factor. What numbers or variables can you divide them all by? 3. So I'm going to divide everything by 3. Hopefully that's a bit of a second nature now. You know how to, divide every term by 3. Okay, so this is what I'm working with, the inside of the bracket. So I need to use sum and product. So that's going to be my product. That's going to be my sum. If you need to, write it. So my sum is -3, my product is 2. So let's write my product. So 2 times 1 is my option, and that's it. So having a look at my answer, I know that it's either going to be a both plus or a both minus, okay? So you can have +2 times plus, I'm just going to write it as 2 times 1, or you can have -2 times -1. Those are my options, because when you times positive numbers together, you get a positive answer. When you times negative numbers together, you get a positive answer. Now, which one can I add to get -3 as my sum? Hopefully you can kind of tell that it's going to be the minuses, because you can't really add the pluses to get a minus answer. So it's going to be -2, plus take 1, okay, which turns into a -1. -2 take 1 turns into -3. So that satisfies my equation, so my sum. So these are going to be my factors. So all I have to do, I find it easy if I highlight it or underline it in 2 separate ones. This is going to be option number 1 as a factor. This is going to be option number 2. So you just literally copy it. Let's do the second one. Okay, so again, common factor, they're all divisible by -2. I'm just going to take the minus out because I don't like dealing with it. So I get x squared. If I divide the second term by -2, it'll be -x. And then the next term will be -6. So this is what I'm looking for. Product, which is -6. Sum, which is -1. So this is what I'm working with. Again, 6 I can times by 1 times 6, 2 times 3. Those are my only options. Noticing that it's a minus I'm working with. So one option will be negative. So one number has to be a negative in that pair. So when I add them, I need to get -1. So 1 and 6 are a little bit far apart. They're 5 apart from each other, so they're never going to get to -1. However, 2 and 3 are only 1 apart. So this is definitely going to be the option. I just need to figure out, does a 2 have a minus or does a 3 have a minus? So is it going to be 2 take 3 or 3 take 2? Obviously, the answer is 2 take 3, which is -1. That satisfies the expression. And I just have to write these 2 terms in a factor. So, I forgot to, going back to this, I forgot to write the 3. You see how there was a 3 over here? I'll highlight it with you. You just don't forget to write that one, because if you forget it, you actually haven't fully factorized properly. Okay, so just make sure you write that extra term we were working with at the beginning. So, x plus 2 is my option, because again, it's invisible, and then -3 is my second option. That's fully factorized. Right, so now we are doing something a little bit different. We are solving equations using null factor law. Null factor law says, if there's an equation that says a times b equals 0, it means a could be 0 or b could be 0. We can have 2 answers equal to 0, okay? Because when a is 0, it'll look 0 times b, which is 0. If b is 0, it'll be a times 0, which is 0, okay? So you can have 2 options, and that's what we're going to try to solve. And first of all, we need to have a look at this equation and notice that this is a quadratic equation, and therefore have it all on one side in order to solve equations, okay? So I'm going to do -15 both sides. So this is where a lot of, assumed knowledge is coming from, because they just started you off. They assumed you knew how to do this. Okay, so now I've got 2x squared. If I simplify, +1 -15 minus 14 equals 0. So I should be able to now factorize using some common factors. So I can get a 2 out. X squared -7 equals 0. Okay, so now what I need to do is write that as my answer. Did I do something wrong? I feel like I did. Okay, so x squared. So now this 2 can't be 0. So these are kind of my 2 terms, 2 options to play around with. There's the 2. and then these two, those are the two factors. 2 can't be 0, okay? If I write 2 equals 0, that doesn't make sense, okay? So that's not what we're playing with. We're trying to figure out this equation, which is x squared take 7 equals 0. So we just need to solve that and find x for that solution. So if I rearrange it, I get x squared equals 7, because I've just flipped it around to the other side, and then I just square root it, basically. And whenever I square root, I need to make sure I add a plus and minus option, unless you're looking at a question with length or other measurements that has a plus answer like time. So x therefore equals plus or minus square root 7, and that is the exact answer. If they obviously ask you for a decimal answer, you can put it in your calculator. All right, let's work with the next one. Now this, if you have a look, is actually already factorized into a perfect square. So if that is the case, you're a little bit lucky. You can kind of just utilize that. Okay. And just get rid of the squared by doing a square root. And again, when I'm doing a square root, you always have the plus and minus option. So these cancel out. The only thing left over is x take 3 on this side. And then you get a plus or minus square root 16. You can actually square root 16. It's a perfect square number. So it will be a plus or minus 4. So very close. We've got plus or minus 4 options on the other side. We just have to add 3 on both sides in order to get x by itself. Now when we do this, plus or minus always is going to be the second term. We always like to write it like in this format. 3 plus or minus 4. So, having the plus or minus 4 at the end, we always like to just have it in that format. And we can actually solve that, because you could write 3 plus 4 or 3 minus 4 and figure out those two options. I'll go over here. 3 plus 4 is 7, or the other option, 3 minus 4, minus 1. So those are your two answers. Let's have a go at this one. So same analogy again. We've got perfect squares. So we've got squares, so you can square root these ones. Plus or minus for the square root. Okay, so these cancel. What you get left over is x plus 2, and then you get a plus or minus square root of 11. Now all I have to do is minus 2 both sides. Again, when I'm minusing or adding things in front of a plus or minus answer, you put it up front, and then put the plus or minus square root 11. Now square root 11 can't be simplified. It'll only be a decimal, so that is technically our exact answer. If you want to separate it, x is going to be minus 2 plus square root 11. So if you want to find your decimal answer, you'd put them separately in the calculator. You can't put plus or minus in the calculator. You just got to calculate them one at a time. And that will give you a decimal answer if you put it in the calculator. All right, let's have a look at these ones. It's example 2, solve 4. So as you can see, they're already factorized in 2 sections. So you need to use null factor law to solve it. So 2x can be 0, okay? That's my A, that's my B. Or x take 4 can also be 0. So these are 2 kind of equations I need to solve to find x by itself. All I need to do is just get x by itself by undoing some algebra. So therefore, x is going to be 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. Or both sides, I just add 4, So x is going to be 4. So that's my answer. X equals 4 or x equals 4. Sorry, x equals 0 or x equals 4. Okay, so now again, A and B, these are my options, A and B. A can be 0 or B can be 0. So looking at the first bracket, x plus 3 can be 0. Or 2x take 5 can be 0. Those are my 2 options, right? A can be 0 or B can be 0. Then I just got to solve it. Literally just algebra. Okay. So I would classify both sides first. And divide 2. 5 over 2. So therefore, if I write it all together, x is minus 3 or 5 over 2. And we do like to have it in fractions rather than decimal, so I would leave it as 5 over 2. Okay, now this one, x squared equals 3x. Now, it's so easy for you to just cancel out x's from both sides, but if you do that, we would only get one answer. I'll show you what that means. So if I do it the wrong way and cancel out an x, divide them both by x, I would just get x equals 3. What is that? That's just one answer. In a quadratic, we should have 2 answers, so we're missing out on one answer. So what you actually have to do is put them all on one side, like we have been doing. So minus 3x on this side, minus 3x on this side. So therefore, we get x squared take 3x equals 0, and then you can use common factors. X, factor it out, so x squared divided by x is x. then minus 3 equals 0. So now we can use the null factor law. This can be A, this can be B, so x can be 0, or x minus 3 can be 0. So if I solve that, the first one's already solved, it's just going to be 0. Or if I just add plus 3 on each side, therefore x equals 3, then my answer to x is 0 or 3. It's always nice to kind of conclude your answer like that too. Alright, example 4. So again, already on one side, amazing, already 0 on the other side. So what I would probably do is kind of notice, try to put it in brackets. You really want to factorize in order to solve null factor law, because you want something times something equals 0. We really want a times, meaning brackets. So if I look at this bracket, I could try to use some things we know. I could try common factoring it, just going down my list. I could use difference of two squares. I could use perfect squares. I could use, what's number 4? Sum and product. I could use, what was it called? I'm having a mental blank. I'll have a quick look. What am I going to say? It is called, what is it called? Why am I having a mental blank? I did write it here somewhere. Nope, not this one. Completing the square. Completing the square. I'm doing this after athletics day, so it's a bit exhausting. Last one, quadratics. So this is the list that we always go down to make sure we can factorize an equation so we can solve it. Okay, looking at this, I can't do common factors. They don't have any common factors, 9 and 49. Difference of two squares, let's see. Well, that one's in a squared minus b squared format. It has two terms. As long as they're both square rootable, I can use this little factorization method. And I reckon we could for this one, because 9x squared we can square root, and 49 we can square root. So if I line it up with my a squared take b squared, hopefully you can find what your a is and what your b is. What happens if I square root 9x squared? I get 3x. What happens if I get square root 49? I get 7. So, therefore, my factorized answer is 3x plus 7 option, 3x minus 7 options, and we always like to write equals 0, and then these is your brackets A and B. So this is A, B. A can be 0, B can be 0. So 3x plus 7 can be 0, or 3x take 7 can be 0. So all I have to do is rearrange both sides. Now, once you get good at rearranging, I'll show you a trick. Oh, x is minus 7 over 3, or plus 7 plus 7. Okay, so my answer, x can be minus 7 over 3, or 7 over 3. Or you could write this as plus or minus 7 over 3, because it's the same numbers, just one option is a positive, one option is a negative. Okay, so, I'll go through the tips later. That's good.